Managers don't create value as such. You need to have team leaders, people who can say, hey guys, let's get going. What do we create today? How do we build it up without asking the boss?
If you really want deeply to scale up your company and you are struggling to make it to the next level, it's because you didn't find your A player. And that A player is not a manager, he is a team leader.
Scaling up a company means turning that company into an asset. If you don't think about the organization of the business, then it's not going to be durable either. Signing a big contract meant investing a lot of money in the business just to be able to fund that project. So the point is not just to grow, is to make sure that that growth is going to be sustainable and that growth is not going to kill your organization.
A lot of entrepreneurs get in their bubble, but forget to socialize.
I've been living in Asia for quite a while, and the salaryman logic is very Japanese.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Scale Up Show. Yes, today we will talk about scaling up a company, and with Antoine we'll try to give you the most thing we can, the most experience, and to give you insight to what's possible, what is scale up, and what do you mean about scale up? Antoine?
Yeah, exactly. The idea is to turn a topic that sounds complex, that sounds out of reach, right, into something that we can turn into some kind of a method, I guess, something that's accessible and that we can turn into something for ourselves. It's mostly a question of mindset. It's mostly a question of building the awareness in the first place. And as soon as you know, then you know. And then you can get started. So that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And of course, the first question is, what is scale up? Because a lot of people try to use that word and try to use that expression even, but they are most of the time not talking about the right thing, and nobody bring kind of good content and good insight about that. So can you, Antoine, explain a little more about what is scale up and what's the real definition and how it can be interesting for most entrepreneurs to focus on that end also?
So what is scale up? I guess you can find a variety of definitions, right? Basically, it's about growing and organizing the company so that you can grow. Some people are going to say we're a scale up. It means we used to be a startup and now we're going to the next stage, so we're raising even more funds for that. Some people are going to say I'm scaling up. It just means I'm growing and I'm organizing and there is no need to raise funds for that. So you don't need to be a raising startup with investors and lots of money behind you to actually start scaling up. What matters is to realize that you have to start organizing your growth, not just to grow. You have to start organizing your growth so that it can get your business to a next step, to a next stage that's going to be sustainable.
Okay, so in the end, it's really an entrepreneurial stage during the development of the company where even if you bootstrapped it or if you started it, you need to scale up to make it to the next level.
Yes.
By organization, as you said.
Yes.
Okay.
And if you want to go even further than that, and that's the challenge that we put in the Scale Up Show, right? It's a question of saying, okay, it can be a matter of organizing the business, but it can be a matter of organizing the team. Scaling up includes the team, and you have to work on your team. You have to say, okay, we have managers. Great, but managers don't create value as such. Right? You need to have team leaders. You need to have people who can say, hey guys, let's get going. What do we create today? How do we build it up without asking the boss?
Yeah.
So there is a team component. There is a money component because you need to finance the organization for that and get the budget for it, which is not the same as raising funds, right? And there is something that happens in your mind. There is a mindset for scaling up. And you can basically talk about scaling up your own mindset. It doesn't necessarily have to be business related. It's just get to the next step.
Yeah, I like that. And there is an idea also I really like about scaling up a company. That's about the A player. So most of the time, if you really want deeply to scale up your company and you are struggling to make it to the next level, it's because you didn't find your A player. And that A player, as you said, is not a manager. He is a team leader. And that's what I really like, because his idea is saying you find the person that will be going to do the job for you instead of you, and it will be way better. So your company will grow way better.
Yeah, it's actually the term A player is an interesting one. It's not the one I was using before meeting you.
Okay.
So I'm guessing it's a term that comes probably from businesses that learn how to scale very fast, because it's a question of saying, okay, I'm not going to build that business so it can become my job. I'm going to build that business so that I can get it running, and then I can get it run by someone else. And that person has to be the A player in the team.
Exactly.
Not many people think like that.
Yeah, but in my case, I really like that, because most of the businesses I try to develop, I want to go to that stage where I'm scaling up, I put a player, and I can focus on something else. Because as you said, most entrepreneurs think they are going to develop a company and it will be that company. But today, minds change, and little by little, the people understand they don't want to develop only one company or one project or stay on it, but the cycle reduces, and they want to go for this one for one time, the other idea for the next time, etc., etc. So in the end, they need, as I think, in my opinion, to get in that situation where you try to automatize your company. So you try to get that A player, you try to get that business running without you, so that you can focus on something else.
So we're going to talk about the stakes in a moment, right? But to come back on what you just said, in the way I talk about scaling, there is one word that keeps coming up, and there is one expression that you just used. The word is asset. Scaling up a company means turning that company into an asset, that business into an asset. You build that business, it becomes something that's valuable. You can do something with it because you can sell it to someone else and they can do whatever they want with it, but you get the value out of the asset. In the same way that buying a building to rent it is going to be an asset. And that asset has to be working for you without you.
Exactly.
That's why you buy a building. That's because you want that money to be used by the asset in a way that produces income for you. So that's the same with the business.
Yeah. Increase cash flow in the long term, even if you are not on it. So, yeah.
Exactly.
So now, as you said, we'll keep going on the stakes, development stakes, and I want you to make that comparison of what is most of the time think from the entrepreneurs, and what is really the stakes. What are really the stakes in development?
So there are two things. One is typically when you talk about scaling up, for people the stake is to say, I used to be a startup and now I'm better than that. And this is, I remember watching TV 10 years ago, morning business TV show. And the guy on TV was, leading TV show, and the guy was discovering the concept of scaling up. He was interviewing an entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur was saying, you know what, we're not a startup anymore, we're scaling up, and so we need to blah, blah, blah. And the interviewer was like, hang on, what did you just say? What do you mean? What did you just say? You just used the word. So that was in French, right? And so the guy never heard about the term scaling up. So the other one explains and says, well, scaling up, it means I'm not a startup anymore. It means I need to get to the next level, so I need to find funding and blah, blah, blah. And the TV guy, who was a professional interviewer of business people, was like, guys, this is the concept of the day, scaling up, right? That was about 10 years ago, and the guy was discovering that live on TV, and it was shocking to me. So the logic usually is scaling up is the next step to starting up, which is not the case. as I said before, you can start thinking in terms of scale up from the very beginning of whatever you're doing. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if you do the exercise right now and you type on Google, how do I scale up my business? One of the first article that shows up is an article by Forbes, I think, or a leading online newspaper. And what they provide in terms of content is, I mean, this or nothing is pretty much the same. The advice they're providing is, be careful with your money. Yes, of course, you've got to be careful with your money, but you've got to be careful with your money when you're starting up, even more than when you're scaling up, right? Because you have less money. So there is the idea that scale up is after starting up, which is not true. And there is the idea that scaling up is something you don't really know. It's kind of a term that doesn't really have a definition. And you're going to get there by doing a bit of this and a bit of that without really knowing why. So there's kind of a gray zone. So no, it's not just for startups that grow up. And no, it's not something in a gray zone. It's something that you can start thinking about, and it's a mindset you've got to build to get an idea that you have into a business that's going to turn into an asset that's going to work for you.
Exactly. I like this definition.
Let's keep it. We can quote it.
Yeah. No, because it's definitely what we have to think when we are entrepreneurs. We won't work for our full life, or if we do, it's because we have passion and because we like what we do. But we have to think for the after. Even as an employee think about his retirement. And us as entrepreneur, we need to think about what we do after this company. So do we want that company to be valuable, as you say, as an asset? Or do we want that company to just fall down when we stop it? So that's really a concern all entrepreneurs should have.
The key stakes, I think there are 4. One is development and growth. 2, financial. The third one is going to be exit, which is not happening a lot. We can talk about that next. And the last one is what I said earlier. It's about the mindset.
Yeah.
So if we take the 4, developing a business in scale-up mode is not a question of saying we need to sell more. It's a question of saying, yes, of course, we need to scale, to sell more. We need to increase the sales. We need to have a sales strategy. We need to grow. We need to have a bigger network for sales. We need to have blah, blah, blah. Okay. It's not just about that. It's a question of saying, all right, if you just keep building that business so that it grows and it grows and it grows, but you don't think about how are you going to build a team that's going to be stable and that's going to make this durable, right? You're never going to be able to scale up. And if you don't think about the organization of the business, then it's not going to be durable either. Typically, in what we do, we talk about a variety of business killers. So let me give you an example. When we work with a new client, typically what we do is we make them grow through kind of a SWOT, right? The strengths, the opportunities, the weaknesses, and all that. And we focus on the growth and the profit. Then we can see where the business that we're scanning is going. When we say how many people in your company have the access to the bank account, people say just me, because I'm the boss. You have a team. You have people who need to get paid. You have suppliers who need to get paid. You're the only one who has access to the bank account. Something happens tomorrow, business is dead. That's a very easy business killer. And you can have a company, and I'm talking about real cases, companies that do, I don't know, okay, let's say it's 3 to 5 million in turnover. Only the boss has the access to the bank account. Not scalable.
Not at all.
So things like that. So when you start thinking in terms of scaling up a business, you have to start thinking in terms of sales. Okay, I'm not talking about that. you've got to start thinking about how do you build a team that's going to be able to grow. In the first place, it's a startup mode. Everyone is doing everything. Okay, it's a mess. Fair enough. But at some point, you've got to start organizing things. Okay, if that's me doing 1, 2, and 3 today, then I need to start thinking about me number 2 and me number 3. Me number 2 is going to do part of that, and me number 3 is going to do another part of that. And progressively, we can start recruiting someone who's going to be me number 2 and someone who's going to be me number 3. But you have to start planning for it. You have to budget it. You have to put it on paper somehow, so that when you start planning your business development and you start looking for funding at some point, you know what you're going to need to pay for.
And I think that's something I call on my own processize, because if you do not processize everything you do, whenever you have someone that is not here because he's sick or whatever, he's just quitting, how would you get that person to do the job if the person that was there is not there to help? So processizing is really the way to organize, and whatever you can processize, everything, have to be processized. If you don't, then you are putting yourself in a situation where you allow the mistakes to come and to happen on that journey, and you will have problems as every entrepreneur. So if you don't processize to be proactive on those problems, then you know what will go.
Another way to say that is, so I don't talk about processize, but I call it documenting, which is the same.
Yeah, it is.
Basically, we're talking about the same, because the documentation is first you build a process and then you document the process.
Yeah.
And again, you can have a company that has $5 to $8 million in or euros, whatever, in turnover. People who do things because where's the process? In my head. Fair enough, but that's not good enough. Okay, but it's in my head. And when you ask people to start documenting that process, they get scared because they feel like, yes, okay, but if I document it, I'm going to lose my job because it's in my head, so it saves me. So that's a risk for the organization, to have systems that are in people's head, not documented. And as soon as you start building the system so that there is a system. Before, there is no system. It's just a chaos that's sort of organized. But now there is a system.
Yeah.
The system has processes, and the processes are documented. So someone is sick, fair enough. Someone quits, fair enough. Someone gets pregnant, fair enough. Someone goes on holidays, fair enough. The process is there, and other people can keep going with it. One way to say that is standardization. And basically, it means as soon as you start building processes, you standardize everything. It sounds very inhuman, right? Should be people, it's people, it's people. No, it's not about people. That part is about purely processing the business. And it's purely a matter of saying, the more we standardize things, the less room we have for chaos.
Yeah.
More standardization means less friction, less random. And that's how you can scale. That's the basic of it. Then the rest is people.
So less resistance and less stress, of course.
Yes.
For the whole team and for the owner. So
yeah. The second point, so that was the first one. The first one was so organizing the organization, making the organization, turning the business into the organization. The second one is really building the resistance or the resilience to stress. And it's really important, because in the end, there are lots of things that can kill you right now. I was talking about earlier the bank account, right? But forget the bank account. It's just one example. Decision making. That's in every business. There is the boss. The boss can have 30, 50 people. Still, the boss is deciding. Once we said to an entrepreneur, you know what, you're tired. You need to start building a board. A board meaning a few people in the company who can decide without you. His first reaction was like, Come on, man, that's my company, I need to do it. The first reaction is always, this is my job. If people start deciding without me, I don't have a job anymore. So the first reaction is always pushing back. Okay. 8 months later. That's a bit of time, right? Oh, guys, I had a great idea. Oh, really? Which one? I'm going to build a board. Ooh, that's nice. Build a board. A few months after that, getting sick, getting out of business for quite a while. Without the board, the company goes down because nobody is here to make decisions. With the board, you can keep going because you organize the business with someone who is in charge of HR and finance, someone who is in charge of operations, and someone who has a global view on everything. The boss is not needed anymore. The board can just keep deciding for the company. Now that company is still there. The boss said, you know what, I'm glad that we had that board because obviously it's still standing and it's still working. But now the boss is not necessary anymore and the company is still living and growing. So that's one example. You have lots of examples that you can take. You could talk about, okay, scaling up means reviewing the way we organize our supply chain. It's not that we can just count on this guy that has always been producing this for us. That guy can be sick tomorrow. Or he can actually sell his company to someone else who's going to decide to do things differently and you're screwed because that guy is not reliable anymore. So if you want to scale up your business and make sure that it's a system that is working without you, you need to make sure that your supply chain is actually working. And who says supply chain means distribution chain as well? That's the same. If you just rely on one guy to distribute your product and that guy sneezes, you're out. So it's interesting when you start thinking in terms of scaling up a business, you have to start about how do I organize it? How do I build it as a structure that's going to work? And how do I identify all those business killers that need to be managed one by one? Otherwise, it's dead. Another one, and then I'll stop, but another one is backups.
Yeah. We've seen that. We had this experience in France. We had, I think it's OVH or I don't know which one, that have servers and those servers burned.
Yeah.
And all the companies that were connected to those servers lost most of their data because it was seems to be the only one that was secured and without any backups. So it was a big concern for the company because it was their credibility that was on stake. But it's the right examples. So
yeah, you think you've backed up everything online and then the servers burn, so you're not backed up.
Yeah.
Period.
That's it. So I will keep going on the next point because I think there is really something interesting to talk about. It's the financial side of the scaling up. So the scale up. There is really something when we talk about processing, we talk about documentation, that we need to think through those elements. Because I will give the example of the story of McDonald's. McDonald's is a company that is definitely, in my opinion, really fully scaling because of that processing and that documentation. And on their scaling, there is one thing in the financial side they thought and they put in action that made them win not millions but billions, and it's only about one element in the when you make those burgers you put I have to find the right name of element
the
of
pickles.
Food. The pickles, yeah. And so when you put the pickles, it was before 3 pickles. And 3 pickles, it was certain price because in a quantity when you do thousands, 100,000, millions of hamburgers, then of course 1 pickles is worth a lot of money. So what they did is saying, instead of putting 3 pickles inside the hamburger, now you will put 2 pickles. And just by doing that, so for the teams, for whatever, it was the same time because in the end, for someone putting 2 or 3 pickles, you do it in one hand. So it was just a matter of financial margin. So now, just by doing that, they increase their margin about billions. So that case is really way more than interesting, because we talk about companies that was already scaled. But when you are scaling up in your company, there is few things you are doing in a way that you didn't thought you could do it differently.
And there was another point about the pickle thing.
Yeah.
It's that when you have too many pickles in your burger, it ends on your tie or on your shirt, the white shirt preferably. So when you reduce the amount of pickles, you reduce the risk of screwing your shirts.
Yeah.
And it means people can feel like it's okay, I can have that sandwich because my shirt
Only
is
two
going to be
pickles.
safe.
It's fine. So more safety. I like this one. But yeah, that's things about financial part that people forget in their companies. They do have, definitely have elements. They should think it out of the box and think about how I could bring more margin on this element if I change it.
There is the margin side. So that's the really being profitable and making sure your business is making money, not just spending it. There is also the growing and the financing aspect. As in, at some point, well, unless you have a business that's making a lot of money on its own because the production cost is like, let's say you're selling something digital, right? The only thing that's going to cost you something is the servers, the online production, let's say, and the ads. So if you do it progressively, then you reinvest all the money you make into the ads and you do more ads, so more sales, and then more ads, and then even more sales, and progressively you can scale by yourself, right? But if you're not doing that, then it means at some point you're going to need to look for money somewhere. So maybe that's going to be a bank loan. So you're going to grow through debt, or you don't want to have some debts. So you're going to go and see an investor and you're going to say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I'm giving this bit of my cake and we're going to make a bigger cake. I need your money. No debt, but equity. When you start going through that, you need to think in terms of scaling up, and you need to have that scaling up logic from a financial standpoint, which is having a business plan. So the financial aspect and the financial stake when it comes to scaling up is very important. You have to go through it. You have to think about it. I'm saying that because I find that completely crazy, but it's something founders don't think about. A lot of founders I've seen, they just started with an idea. They started building the idea and they got somewhere because someone pushed the idea, or they got into an incubator and someone else is funding this, right? So they don't have to pay for the desk, the office, the computer power. So it's logical, they look for money. But when you ask, how are you going to spend that money? They're like, we'll see. No. What do you want to do with that money? Fund the development. Okay, but tell me more. I need to do more. I'm not going to just give you a blank check without knowing, right? It sounds crazy to say that, but especially in the early stages with startups that need to raise the first rounds, you have a lot of people who just think that it's going to be like a walk on the beach, and they don't think in terms of, I need to build my business to the next level, and I need to start scaling up my financial thinking. I need to understand what a business plan is. I need to understand how I'm going to build it. Sometimes they say, you know what, I'm paying someone, he's going to make a business plan. Don't do that. That's just screwing yourself up, because at some point you're going to be in front of investors and they're going to look at the numbers and they're going to grill you there. And they're going to be like, why did you put that number here? And you can't just say, well, that guy did it. It's not me. So when you start scaling up that business, you need to put yourself with a financial hat, and you need to be able to think, okay, my business is going over there. So the directions I'm taking are 1, 2, 3. The costs associated with that are A, B, C. And I can pitch that. I can explain it. I can justify it. Maybe someone is going to say this is stupid, then either I listen and there is something to do, so I revise, or the guy says this is stupid and he goes, in which case I decide if I use that or not, and then I'm talking to someone else knowing that this is a criticism. But that implies changing your approach to money and changing your approach to finance so that you can keep building. There is another point, which is basically survival. Money is a stake when you have to grow a company, and I worked with, for instance, an entrepreneur who was an architect, and it was in China, right? So in China, you've heard online, there was a boom about building lots of construction sites and all that. It just went crazy, and then at some point, the company that was funding everything just dropped out, right? So they had entire cities that were just built without anyone inside there, just because it was a huge scam. Anyway, there is that trend at some point where people say in China, we're going to build this, we need an architect, right? And that client we're working with is an architect, and he signs. Happy. He didn't read the contract. The contract was saying he had to pay upfront himself, and he would be paid in stages later on after the various steps were completed. So he was working pretty much on his own with a small team, and the contract was saying as soon as you sign, you have to hire 15 people. You have to build this, you have to build that, you have to organize everything and provide us with full plans and drawings and sketching and blah, 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 blah. The list was longer than my arm. He had no way to fund it, but he didn't think about it, because to him, growing the business was about signing a big contract, and he never realized that signing a big contract meant investing a lot of money in the business just to be able to fund that project. So there is a stake, financial stake, in terms of how do you finance it and how do you make sure it doesn't kill you.
Yeah, and what happened to that person, to that architect? Did it kill him, or did he?
It didn't,
succeed?
because we were behind.
Okay.
And in the end, we managed to make him revise the contract, talk to the people he was working with, and make him work with people as a team, so that in the end it went okay. But
good.
The first reaction to him was like, man, I'm dead.
Yeah. How will I handle that?
So the point is not just to grow, is to make sure that that growth is going to be sustainable, and that growth is not going to kill your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's sad to say, but you're just fucked up, and that's on your...
Yeah, that's something we should definitely think. Sometimes we get eager and greedy about going big, going fast, going, amazing, but we forget to think about the basics. And the basics, a contract, I think it is a basic.
It is one of the business killers that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Do you have a lawyer? Do you sign something that people give you? You know, I've been a lawyer. Not a practicing lawyer, but teaching law and doing that for a while. And usually, that's something I tell my clients now when they say, okay, I'm just negotiating the contract and we're going to be fine. I'm like, wait, what did you sign? Nothing. You just sent me a few edits and I validated the thing. Show me the edits. And the edits that you have, especially in the last minute, are always the one that screw you the worst way ever. Like, you're a designer and you're going to do that studio, right? Fair enough, you sign. The night before the actual signing of the contract, me, the owner of the studio, sending you, the designer, an email. Oh, by the way, we just had a discussion with the team. Can you just add that clause in the contract? It's nothing. It's just going to be fine. You don't think too much about it because you want to sign the check that's going to be given to you, to get the check that's going to be given to you tomorrow, right? So you add it in the contract. The clause is written by a smart-ass lawyer, but it says one thing. You are giving me all the intellectual property on this contract. And I can use that intellectual property to reproduce that studio anywhere I want on the planet.
Once done once.
And I can sell that design to other people. So I'm going to make money on that design. And best case scenario, and I'm saying that because it's something I've seen, I put in the clause that you, the designer, should be allowed to participate to the bidding in case we need to improve that design somewhere, but you will be in competition with others. Tomorrow you sign that, your design is not yours, it's mine. And I can do anything I want with it. The only thing I had to do is wait until the last minute, late at night when you were tired and you wanted to sign anything because you wanted your check tomorrow.
Keep an eye on what you do, guys.
You have to keep an eye on everything you do.
Yeah.
You have to think about the long term. That's getting us to the next stake,
Yeah.
which is you have to think long term. And thinking long term in terms of scale up is two things. One is, where do we want to go? What's the vision? What's the key target? So we think 5, 10 years, right? Maybe 7, something long term, which is, well, I mean, that's relatively short term, but in terms of business, 5 years is it's quite a good point.
But as I said, cycle reduces. So 5 years begin to be a midterm to long term. So yeah.
Exactly. So first point is, what's the vision? The vision is important because it gives you the transformation you want to create, the value you want to create. It gets people on a mission. Getting people on a mission means your staff knows why they come to work in the morning, and your partners around, they have a good reason to talk about you and support you in any way they can, even though they don't necessarily, they are not shareholders, right? They just want to support what you're doing because they think it's a good thing. So scaling up means having a vision. You need to know where you're going. And the second thing is you have to think in terms of exiting. And the exit point is a complex point. We'll talk about that with some guests on the podcast on next episodes. But you hear a lot of people say, you have to exit. But exiting is a lot more complex than people think. First, and again, that's one of the questions we systematically ask to the people we start working with when we do that growth and profit analysis questionnaire game. It's, do you have an exit strategy? And one of the, well, you have a few answers that you can give, and one of them is, what the fuck are you talking about? Excuse my French, but and that answer is a typical one. People don't know what an exit strategy is because, again, they started their business as a side hustle or as just they didn't want to have a job, so they started this. So their business is a job to them. So the point is not to sell the business in 5 years. The point is to keep that business for 30 years because it's going to be their income until they retire. So they want to keep it going. They don't want to be redundant. The problem with that is, as I said before, at some point you need to grow. So if you just go to the bank and get a loan and you get some debt, okay, nobody cares about your exit strategy. They want to make sure that you can repay, right? But if you don't want to get some debt and you want to get some partners who are going to be investors in your project, they're going to put cash in the project. It's not free money. They want to get their money back. So when you pitch your project, the question that they're asking or not is, when do I get my money back? What happens in 5 years? Typically, you have 2 options. Okay, 3. One is the one you don't want to hear about. You're dead. So they lose their money. That's okay. That's their job. They know what they're doing. They're taking the risk. Let's get rid of that option. That leaves 2 other ones. One is the business is a cash cow. It's making money. So these guys, they will want to stay in the business because they're going to get dividends, right? Option 2 is that business is growing and needs to get more cash in, more investments. And that's the game of funding rounds. You get someone now who's going to put some money in the company, and their expectation is in 5 years, there's going to be another round. And the people who are going to put the money in the next round are going to buy them out. So if tomorrow I'm putting 1,000, in 5 years, the company is worth more, and you need not 1,000, but 100,000. So bigger fish are going to come, are going to buy me out, take my shares, and instead of having 1,000, I'm going to get 10,000. Okay, I'm making 10 times my money, fair enough. So the exit intent, the exit logic is a matter of saying, if I'm going to see investors, they have to realize that I know I need to give them their money back. So my whole strategy is to say, 5 years from now, we're selling and you get your money back. Or 5 years from now, we'll be much bigger and we will have more funding rounds, so you can get your money back one way or another. And then the investors are going to be like, okay, I understand. Here is the cash. So the exit logic is very important. It means if you want to scale up, you need to know where you're going. It doesn't have to be about sailing. Some of the people we work with, they want to give the business to their kids. So it can be an entrepreneur who says, I want to retire by 55. So when I'm 55, my son or my daughter, I want to give them the company and they become the boss. That gives me 10 years to train them. And when they take the lead, I'll just get some cash on the side, but my point is to transmit. That's an exit strategy. It's about transmitting to someone else. But you have something that you need to be able to transmit something. And what you transmit is that asset that is creating value for whoever is owning it.
Yeah, and I think that connects also to one thing we said a little earlier, that to get to that point, even if it's family, even if it's automatizing and you taking a step back, even if it's exiting fully and selling your shares, you need to have, again, that business that works without you. And all we said during this exchange actually allows you to get to that point, and you have, if you don't want to be prisoner of your own business, you have to get to that point. So startup is putting the hell out of effort to get to that scaling, and then when you are scaling, you're allowing that business to work without you again. So yeah,
it's a business that works for you and without you.
Exactly. We want income to still be coming.
Yeah, but that's actually a good point that gets us to the last take, which is mindset. The way we are talking right now is a real mindset thing.
Yeah.
You have to decide that your business is not a job. You have to decide that your business is an asset that you are going to build. The same way you are going to put money in a bank and expect some returns on it, right? This is the same. So scaling up implies having an appropriate mindset that's going to allow you to get where you are, where you want to get.
And I think it needs also for the people to have the right mindset to listen to the people who've done that. And a lot of entrepreneurs get, in their bubble, work, but forget to socialize. And even if they don't socialize, they forget to learn about the others, to find a mentor. And you need to get to that situation, to put you in a situation where you learn from someone that have done that. So take time whenever to, open a book, and you are a good reader, and I know you will want to share some books on few exchange we have today. If you can read. If you prefer to look at video, look at video. If you like to, hang out and spend some time with people, just hang out with people that are entrepreneurs, that are CEOs, that are building things. If you like to, stay alone, on your own, find a way to learn. You have a lot of biopic film, you have a lot of things that allows you to, okay, I am running an experience as a person to run a company and to develop a company. How can I take that experience to a level that is better just by learning? So find a way to learn, and I think that's something people should definitely do. And the mindset with that situation of you learning will just grow little by little. For example, for me, it's, I don't know, 12 years I'm in entrepreneurship. I began at 18. So not yet 12, 10, let's say 10 to 11. But from where I began to today, even the people I have around are not the same. And to get that mindset, I needed to have the kind of people that will allow me to grow as a person, to then be able to, break some ceiling. So yes, if you break that ceiling, then definitely you get better and better, and your mindset even itself will improve. But yeah, a lot of people talk about mindset without understanding what's behind, but it's just understanding your own psychology, reading on it, and trying to get, okay, my personal life, I like this and I'm happy by doing this. My professional life, I'm happy by doing this, and this I have to improve. Okay, but the more you understand how you react to things and how the people you work with also react to those things, then, okay, you improve yourself.
The point about self-development is very efficient, and it shows a lot more than we think. People who are conscious about the impact of self-development, you can spot them, you can see them.
Yeah.
And it's very visible when you go to events, networking events that are made to, connect entrepreneurs and business people, right? And you have some people who just, whatever the event, they're going to try and sell you something, right? I'm doing that. You need an insurance, right? Their job is to sell you something, and you're not here to buy anyway. So because you're already thinking in terms of self-development, you're not sensible to that. So it's just going to go over your head. But then someone shows up and doesn't try to sell you something, says that they have a business, the business is running, there is a team, their job is to focus on the rest, focus on the next steps, focus on whatever is coming ahead. That person is already speaking another way. They are speaking a different language. They are speaking about that level when everyone else is here. So, you're probably out of the camera kind of level. But the point is, you can hear that person is scaling up their own mindset, scaling up the way they think. They are getting to the next level, and you realize it if you're there as well. I was looking at a magazine the other day, and they were talking about the white sole of the shoe.
Okay.
And it's a brand that uses that white sole of the shoe for every model they have. And the brand says, if you know, you know. That's it. So people who know, they recognize that kind of people. And so if you start thinking that way, and if you start working on that yourself, that gives you a way to start playing in the next game. So that's really interesting.
And then the surrounding you have of people that get your friends, that get to be partners, that get to be maybe associates, are those kind of people. Because in the end, you become that person. I was going to say people, but you are a person. You get to be that person that have bigger mindset, that have a better personal development, and you attract those people that are like that. Because people that recognize, as you say, knows definitely who is who, they will see you. And if they see you, you will see them. And then you will connect. Maybe just like that for a time, but then you will see a second time, and this second time you will get deeper on subject, and now you will realize that, okay, I was not mistaken.
Yeah, definitely. So question, how do you start that? How do you... Someone here is listening and is like, okay, that's interesting. I want to start thinking like that, but where do I start? I'll let you answer that, and then I'll give you my own insight?
I will give a little feedback on my own experience. I was someone that was really shy when I was younger, really shy. Now I can speak in front of hundreds or thousands of people, and I spend a good time and sharing them and allowing them to share me back, and it's fine. I'm okay. But when I was younger, I was really shy. And for me, this click, it was understanding that I can get better. Not that it's possible, because maybe I saw that someone was better than me. This one, if I compare myself, it's also better. But I was not fully conscious that I can get better. So when I definitely understood that it is not even a possibility, but myself, I can do it, I can get better by way or another, then I got that click. And especially when I got into business for the first time, I saw how fast I've grown in the space of 3 to 6 months. People were going to begin to tell me, and even it was not me showing, it was them telling me. Then I got the second step. Okay, second click. Okay, so I understood that I can grow. I agreed myself, I can, and I allow myself to grow. But then it was a step that people realize it, so I like it, and I get into the process and I enjoy the process.
It's a question of clicking, testing, and then seeing if that takes.
Yeah.
And when it takes, you keep going.
Yeah.
But
of course, when you spend those steps for the first time, you don't realize all those steps. But when you take a little back and look at it, then you understand. But took time.
Yeah.
So what about you?
To me, the scale-up logic didn't come from me. It came from external simulation and provocation. I had we talked about it when we did the intro, the first video, and I was saying I was pretty much in a corporate kind of logic where something you do now gets you to a next step and then to a next step. And I got to a stage where the framework where I was working and living was not good enough. And I was trying everything I could to try and make that box work. And I was complaining about it without realizing it. And people around, especially my current business partner, said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I was like, I'm doing everything I can about it, but it's not me. And that's because I was looking at the box that was right here, when the only option was to get out of that box and accept that you're going to just get rid of it and look at whatever is out there. So the scaling up, the mindset scaling up work kind of appeared at that time, where someone else is, pushing you a bit and then a bit more. And then at some point it just give you a punch on the shoulder and say, now you have to stop with the bullshit and just look out, do something else. And then that happens and you start opening your eyes and you realize that you have to think differently, look at things differently, talk to different people, change things. So sometimes you're aware of it, sometimes you're not. I was not aware of it until someone punched me in the face.
That's also a good moment, right?
At that time, not nice at all, very uncomfortable. But as soon as you get started, there is no way to go back. You can't go back to that kind of tiny framework where everyone is just following the rule. You have to do something for yourself. The way I would phrase it, though, is the best way to picture it, to illustrate it, is to switch from the salaryman idea to the redundant CEO idea. So I've been living in Asia for quite a while, and the salaryman logic is very Japanese. And Google it, you can see. But basically when you're in Japan, there is that logic where people do whatever it takes to fit in that mold, right? And they want to get that job and then the next job, and they want to do things the perfect way. And they work a crazy amount of hours and they manage to survive insane pressure. The Japanese, they survive insane pressure. You wouldn't be able to survive it. But they resist, they keep going, they keep going, they keep going. And then they burn out. Crazy. Right? But they call it the salaryman. And typically, if your job is to be a husband and a dad, you are going to be a salaryman because you have to get to work in the morning, do whatever it takes to get your money back, and go home. So it's a salaryman kind of logic. That's the name of it. That's how they call it.
So no balance.
No balance. Just full steam. So when we talk about scaling up, we talk about becoming redundant. It's the opposite. The salaryman cannot become redundant. They depend on being needed. Scaling up means, how do I make sure that things are working without me but for me? If you manage to switch, just asking you the question, right? If you manage to ask yourself the question right now, how can I change things so that I don't need that job to pay for whatever I need, and then I'm frustrated because blah, blah, blah. And you manage to switch to how do I become redundant and I build something that's working without me, you get started.
So, in my opinion, what we should resume from that exchange is, guys, be redundant, find a way in your scaling up to not be useful and find people that are way better than you, and on the process, of course, get better, and it will allow you to be good and find good ones that are better than you because you know how to recognize them. And then, of course, you will be redundant and you will be just doing something aside while your business is going up. So maybe it's a good way to resume, I don't know.
Yeah, my summary is scaling up is about building an asset. Whatever the asset, but it's not about starting up. It's not about having a startup kind of company that already has investors and blah, blah, blah. That's bullshit. It's about saying, whatever I'm starting, where do I want to get? How do I want that thing to work? How is that going to serve me instead of the other way around? How do I make sure it's not a job? It's an asset that's working for me. And one suggestion I have is this book. It's one of my Bibles, basically. It's called The E-Myth, and the title speaks for itself. It says why most small businesses don't work and what to do about it. This book, I like the title of the author, Michael Gerber, and the tagline is the world's #1 small business guru, right? And that's because that book is very practical. It tells a story, basically, of someone who's a business advisor and has my job, basically. And that guy gets into a bakery one day. And in that bakery, there's just the owner, and she's kind of, down the hall, crying, tired, and all that. So he closes the shop and sits and has coffee with her and makes her talk about what's going on, what's wrong, and all that. And we'll talk about that book in another video, but basically what happens is she gets stuck in what she does because she was someone who enjoyed baking cakes. And everyone said, you know what, you should have a bakery because your cakes are good. So she starts building a bakery, and then she gets trapped in that bakery because what she likes about baking is baking. It's not buying in wholesale kind of thing. It's not cleaning the shop. It's not paying the tax. It's not talking to the taxpayer's office. It's not to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and closing the shop at midnight because it has to be clean for tomorrow. And the difference between what she does and the rest is that she's not thinking in terms of scaling up. She's thinking in terms of trying to survive a business that doesn't work without her and doesn't work for her. So if you want to have a quick look at what scaling up means, this is the little book, Build an Asset and Get Started.
Thank you, Antoine. I think we have a great video there. So we hope this video was insightful for you. We hope you enjoyed it, and we see you in the next one, and take care of you guys. Let's scale up. See you guys.